So I just finished reading this book called Principles of Art History by Heinrich Wolfflin. It's a great book, written I think in like the 1920s, or that might have been when the author died, but it's like from around that period. And it's German work. Germans were very important for pioneering the discipline of art history, systematizing it into like a actual like consistent body of thought, into like a academic scholarly kind of discipline. And like a lot of the classics of art history from that period are written by Germans from the early period of art history as a discipline. A lot to Germans, not just like systematizing the discipline as in terms of its lexicon and whatnot, but also doing a lot of original research into like what is taken to be the most important period in art history, which is like the Renaissance and Baroque and classic art. Wolfflin studied under Jacob Burckhardt, who was, I think, like taken to be like the father of art history or something. He was like friends with Friedrich Nietzsche. They both taught at the University of Basel at the same time. Nietzsche just briefly. Burckhardt was there for a long time. Nietzsche sent him like an early copy of The Birth of Tragedy, which Burckhardt kind of just like dismissively was complimentary towards. Kind of like unwilling to engage with this kind of like lunatic guy, rightfully so. Anyway, I would recommend this book to anyone who's interested in art. Like it has like it's not like an introductory text into the Renaissance or Baroque, or like the difference between Italian Renaissance and Northern Renaissance. If you don't have a background, if you don't have some kind of like contextual knowledge of that sort of thing, then you'll still be able to get through it, but you might miss some of what's going on. Like he doesn't really introduce you. It's more about like systematizing a method of doing formal analysis of visual content from both paintings and etchings, that sort of thing, as well as like sculpture and architecture. He outlines these various dualities, like these conceptual formal dualities, like the linear versus the painterly and closed and open form, which he then like applies to artworks across the three mediums, which are traditionally like the cornerstones of what fine art is. The architecture, sculpture, and painting what constitute fine art, visual arts, plastic arts, whatever. So I think it's pretty important. I mean, I don't know. It's not important for anyone who is not already interested in this sort of thing. Like I don't know if there's like real like ambient significance to knowing how to do formal analysis of artworks. But if you are interested in art, then I definitely think it is important to be able to do formal analysis, because it's going to help you so much in looking at art and being able to talk about it and being able to think about it. Like it's not just about having contextual knowledge about when the Renaissance was, when the major figures of the Renaissance lived and died, the relationships to each other, the social relations of the time. All that kind of thing is important, but when you're doing art history, when you're thinking about art, it's always important to go back to a piece of art itself, and to do like a analysis of a primary work. Like that is what is most important. Like when you're working in another discipline like English literature or like philosophy or history or something, you always work with primary sources, and the same is true in art history or art criticism, whatever you want to call it, however you might relate to art. You always want to go back to a work of art itself. And I was thinking recently about like how underrepresented aesthetics is within the discipline of philosophy. Like I have a background in philosophy, and I didn't learn a single thing about aesthetics. And looking into it, it seems like most philosophers are not really into aesthetics. It seems like there's like a distinct underrepresentation of aesthetics within, like university departments, as well as, within like general philosophical discourse. And I think it's because when doing aesthetics, you need to have like the activity of doing like aesthetic philosophy or developing aesthetic philosophy cannot simply be reduced to like what is necessary to do philosophical activity. Like you need something that is not, you need something else than a strictly philosophical mindset. You need, to be able to understand art. You need to have some kind of personal connection to art or to an artwork. More, I think probably art more generally. Like, and this is not some kind of like a supernatural thing. Like when I started studying art history, I specifically chose it over English literature, which is actually like the domain that I think is more relevant to my own creative pursuits, because I felt like I had absolutely no entry point into art, into visual art. I had no connection to it, whereas I had a connection to novels and literature just because I'm able to read that thing. I've been reading like books my whole life. I have like a more immediate connection to it, whereas with art history, I had no real connection to it. I had no knowledge of it. I felt like I had no entry point into it, no access to it as a discipline, as like an area. So I chose to study it formally because like I thought like a formal introduction and like being guided through it would be very helpful, obviously. But also I think aesthetics and art is important. But I like when I started studying art history, I didn't feel like I continued to feel like somewhat of an outsider. Like I didn't feel like I had the same kind of like supernatural connection that a lot of art historians or people who are in the art world seem to talk about in terms of their relationship to art. But it's something that you develop over time. Like I have developed like, I still feel like an outsider. I still feel like I don't have, like haven't picked up on like a particular artist or movement or period that I can really call my own and like do like original research into. But like obviously I've developed like a great or a much greater empathy and like understanding and connection to visual art than previously. And I think that if you're interested in that sort of thing, and I think you should be, I think everybody who is creative and is doing work within culture more broadly should try to like study disciplines outside of their own. So I think that visual art is important for most people who are not visual artists, as well as people who are visual artists. But anyway, where was I trying to go with this? I just think that if you're interested in visual culture and in culture more generally, I think it would behoove you to have some kind of background, and like the historical background, like knowing about the Renaissance, whatever, knowing like the date at which the Renaissance became the Baroque, the geographical distinction between Italian Renaissance and Northern Renaissance, whatever. But it is, I think, important to be able to do some basic level of formal analysis, which this book, let's get back to that, the primary text. The book is really good at doing. Like it focuses. There's no mention of modern art in this, obviously, and it focuses on. I feel like in some way it's easier to do formal analysis of classical art, just because they weren't doing abstraction. But this is a great book to learn how to do formal analysis. So I recommend it to everyone who's interested in visual culture. It's really well written, really systematic. It will, like the way that it speaks about some of the works in it are, it's very evocative, and the reproductions are great. Like they're all black and white and whatnot, which is perhaps unfortunate, but I like it. And they're all really great works. You'll get exposure to a lot of great works through this book. So, yeah, I recommend it. Check it out. Heinrich Wolfflin, Principles of Art History. Pretty rambling video, but I'll see you next time.